It's not unusual for families to have disagreements or face financial struggles. Despite this, some families manage to stay united and carry on with their daily routines. I don't think it's necessary to determine which type of family is happier. My name is Lily. Since childhood, I've been labeled as peculiar. I'm unsure what makes me odd. I only think of myself that way because others say so. Being called strange doesn't bother me, but my parents' avoidance due to this perception does. My childhood was marked by loneliness. I have an uncanny ability to sense what others are thinking, though I don't know how I do it. It's not that I could see or feel everything, but I couldn't understand why I had this ability. It felt as natural to me as moving hands or breathing does to most people. There was an instance when I sensed a malevolent emotion from a coworker my father had brought home. I felt a strong need to be wary of this person. I warned my mother, but she dismissed my concerns. Eventually, this coworker convinced my father to become a guarantor for a loan. My mother didn't believe my intuition, but as my father and the coworker were leaving, I mentioned that the terms joint and several sounded dangerous. I didn't fully grasp what it meant, but urged caution. Consequently, my father hesitated and decided against co-signing. When the coworker later went bankrupt and couldn't repay his debts, my father was spared from bearing the full financial burden. Another time, while out shopping with my mother, I sensed a wave of unease behind us. When I turned, I saw a man in sunglasses and a hat radiating that feeling of unease. "Mom, let's head that way and keep moving," I suggested, taking my mother's hand. We turned down a side street and she looked puzzled, wondering what was wrong. Just then, we heard a shout of, "I've been robbed," from the main street. The man I had sensed earlier had snatched a woman's bag right in front of us and fled. The woman, injured, collapsed. If we had stayed on the main sidewalk, my mother could have been the thief's target. Because such incidents occurred so often, my parents started seeing me as strange and peculiar. This led to a deep loneliness. What felt normal to me was not normal to others. As the odd and eerie child, I kept my thoughts to myself. Even when I sensed something was wrong, I stopped expressing it, fearing people would think I was crazy. I realized that by staying silent, I appeared like any other child, and no one would think I was strange. My younger sister, Sophie, is 3 years younger than me. She is an ordinary child, unlike me. While I grew increasingly withdrawn over the years, my sister became more adorable and charming. She received the love and attention from our parents that I did not. My parents favored my younger sister over me. Sophie is a charming young girl, while Lily is seen as dark and shadowy. Despite no longer voicing my unusual thoughts, the label of being an odd child stuck with me. I didn't stop having strange feelings or insights. I simply learned to keep them to myself. I pretended to be normal to survive, exhausted by the pain this ability caused and trying hard to control it. I grew up without my parents' love. Whether it was because my efforts to seem normal made me appear even more unusual, or because the strange image attached to me was unshakable, I can't say. In contrast, my younger sister was showered with our parents' affection. Sensing their coldness and slight distance from me, she began to look down on me. She would say, "I don't like being around my sister because her darkness rubs off on me." She saw herself as attractive and believed I negatively impacted her image. She started to put me down at every opportunity. My parents merely tolerated her behavior and did not attempt to correct her. When I was in my 2nd year of junior high, and my sister Sophie was in her 5th year of elementary school, she was approached by a scout from a local entertainment production company. They invited her to join their agency, and she confidently declared, "Of course it's because I'm attractive. They said I could be on television." My younger sister was already considering a career that pleased our parents. Concerned, I advised her, You should take it slow and think about it. I have a bad feeling about this. I didn't want her to encounter any trouble, so I shared my hidden feelings. Unaware of my unusual ability, she retorted, "Are you criticizing me because you're not attractive and can't communicate with others as well as I can? Stop being strange and don't interfere." Her face reddened with anger as she reached for me. My parents, who either forgot about my ability or were too thrilled about their younger daughter's potential stardom, sided with her and accused me. This experience reaffirmed my decision to stay silent. I realized that speaking up would bring no good. One day, a student teacher was scheduled to visit my middle school. He was a male college student, aspiring to be a physical education teacher. He delivered an inspiring speech about his educational dreams, quickly becoming popular with both teachers and students, especially the female students. As he engaged with the enthusiastic female students, I felt a wave of dread wash over me. Despite my rule to keep my abilities hidden, I couldn't ignore the danger my classmates might be in. I approached a teacher who seemed likely to understand. "I know this is unexpected, but please believe me and help me," I pleaded. The teacher was puzzled by my abrupt statement, but he followed my request and kept watch at a specific location after school. I didn't share the details because I knew he wouldn't believe me. Despite the lack of explanation, he listened and acted on my word. Perhaps he was more insightful than he appeared. The next day, the school was in an uproar. The student trainee had violated the nuisance prevention ordinance. The teacher had staked out near the women's restroom and caught the trainee entering it. Within 15 minutes, the trainee set up a video camera. Thanks to the teacher's intervention, the female students were spared from being victims of humiliation. Meanwhile, my younger sister enthusiastically joined the entertainment agency that scouted her. However, there were no lessons or auditions, just costly affiliation and lesson fees. One day, the agency abruptly closed, revealing it was a scam. My sister was devastated and turned her rage on me, screaming, "It's all because of you. You ruined my future. It's entirely your fault." Her accusation was absurd, but she seemed to believe it completely. This belief might have been her way of coping, but for me, it was disastrous. My parents didn't say such ridiculous things, but they did notice that she was distancing herself from me and leaning toward our younger sister. As a strange child, I was once again destined to experience loneliness. Although I was glad to have helped everyone at school, I worried that my actions would further isolate me. The next day, the teacher who had listened to my story called me to the staff room. I opened the door, anxious about being labeled as strange once more. "You knew something like that was going to happen about a week ago, didn't you?" the teacher asked me quietly. Realizing it was pointless to deceive him, I revealed my mysterious power. "There aren't many people like that out there," I added. For the first time, I felt understood. The teacher explained that he knew someone with my level of ability, which is why he believed me. "That person is my aunt, and I've known about her abilities for a long time. I understand you have a lot on your mind. I'm sure you'll feel much better if you get advice from someone in your situation." After saying this, the teacher introduced me to her. She looked into my eyes and said, "It's natural to be concerned, but you don't have to suffer." Her kind yet piercing eyes seemed to see everything, drawing me in. Her name was Sarah. The teacher told me that she had possessed the same power since childhood and had spent her life troubled in hiding it. The story of the older person who had gone through similar experiences to mine helped release me from my fears and doubts. My interaction with Sarah began on that day. I called her my mentor, but she laughed and said, "Will you not call me that?" Sarah, or rather my mentor, changed my life. I had lived a modest, shadowy existence, concealing who I was, but my perspective transformed. Gradually, I was able to live my daily life as a normal girl. However, Since the incident with the entertainment agency, I have been unable to get close to my sister. We seem to be drifting further apart. It was typical for her to ignore me, and when she did speak to me, it was usually to complain or make fun of me. I never knew what triggered these shifts. My psychic abilities failed to predict my sister's emotional changes. She used to say things like, "What's the big deal about you getting accepted to college? Aren't you just living in a fantasy world?" My sister had failed the entrance exam for her first choice high school, one she was told she would pass. She ended up enrolling in what she considered a second choice school. As a result, she was furious when I was accepted to her top choice university. I wasn't happy about her situation, and I certainly wasn't bragging to her. She simply made assumptions and disrespected me. My parents comforted and coddled my sister during her difficult times, telling me to stay away and not bother her. Despite having grown and improved since meeting Sarah, my sister still didn't seem to like me. I guess she only likes me when I'm the dark and gloomy inferior one, I thought bitterly. On the other hand, my sister is incredibly intelligent. It was surprising that she didn't pass the high school entrance exam, but she channeled her frustration into her studies at the school she enrolled in. As a result, she became the top student for 3 years and secured admission into a prestigious national university on her first attempt. "I got into the toughest university. Yours doesn't even compare," she proudly declared. I responded lightly, "Yeah, I guess so." I knew getting too involved would only lead to disaster. My sister, however, interpreted my casual remark as an affront to her brilliance and lashed out at me with all her might. My parents were afraid of my sister's temper outbursts, which left them watching helplessly whenever she spiraled. They blamed me for these episodes, labeling me as the troubled daughter. I wanted to argue with them about who truly fit that description, but I held my tongue. I needed to keep the peace at home, especially with my college years coming to a close and crucial life decision looming. While I've grown less withdrawn over time, I still struggle with sociability and doubt my ability to form successful relationships. My unique ability to sense people's negative emotions has heightened my sensitivity to negativity, often overwhelming me. In school, I've been buffeted by these swirling emotions, which have made me wary of trusting others. Concerned about how I might fare in a corporate environment, I sought guidance from my mentor. I was certain she had faced similar challenges and wanted to learn how she had overcome them. She shared, "I've navigated those same difficulties myself. Perhaps you should consider a path like mine." She explained that she had spent years as a fortune teller and counselor, using her abilities to help others with their problems. "Working freelance allows me to fully utilize my skills and contribute meaningfully to others without being tied to an organization. It's an ideal role for people like us who struggle with managing emotions and relationships." Encouraged by my mentor, I decided to pursue the same line of work she had chosen. She taught me the ropes and how to find clients, leveraging the opportunities offered by the internet to work from home. When I informed my parents and younger sister that I would be working from home instead of seeking a traditional job after graduation, their reaction was predictable. "What exactly is this job? What kind of work will you be doing? At the very least, you should contribute to household chores. How will you manage living expenses?" While I anticipated their concerns about the nature of my work and the financial implications, I was disappointed by their lack of support. Even though I understood their expectations regarding household responsibilities and financial contributions, it still saddened me. I could foresee my sister's disrespect increasing, which added to my distress. And so, my journey as a work-from-home professional began. Initially, there were no immediate job offers, and it was a process of trial and error. With guidance from my mentor, I gradually secured contracts and clients. Despite my father's insistence that I contribute financially to the household, I focused my energy on managing household chores. While my father remained displeased, My mother was relieved to see things becoming easier, and she mediated between us. When I finally made a financial contribution to the household after about a year, my father teased me, saying, "So, you finally earned some money, huh?" Despite contributing financially, the division of household chores between my father and me remained unchanged, leaving my daily life unaffected. 2 years later, my sister graduated from university and secured a position at a foreign-affiliated company, where she enjoyed a generous salary. Unlike my sister, who now works outside the home, I do not belong to the elite workforce. She mocks my work-from-home setup, stating, "What exactly do you do working from home? Isn't that just for fun? You're a freeloader in your own home. I'll be making 10 times more than you soon enough. Someone like you could never earn that much," she taunts, having been promoted to a managerial role within a year and a half at her company. While my sister boasts about her high salary, she contributes nothing to household responsibilities. Laundry, cooking, and other chores are left entirely to my mother and me. Though my mother delegates most tasks to me, I end up bearing the brunt of the workload. "Sophie, you should take more responsibility for yourself. Instead of spending everything on yourself, consider contributing to the household," I suggested to her once. In response, she dismissed me with, "You're just a burden, sister. You should handle all the housework. I'm saving for my future." For reasons beyond my comprehension, she consistently disregards me. My parents tactfully side with her, citing that she's my sister and implying there's little that can be done. I was content in my familiar work-from-home job, but I started questioning my plans. Then, my sister dropped a bombshell. "I'm getting married." The sudden announcement stunned both my parents and me. "He's a wealthy man earning over $10 million per year," she added proudly, catching us off guard. "Well, I'm happy for you, sister. But isn't marriage just a fantasy for someone like you?" I couldn't help but remark, taken aback by the news. Soon after, she brought her boyfriend home. The following Sunday, amidst our bewildered state, the young man arrived dressed impeccably in a suit and tie. "My name is John. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I've come to propose to Sophie." He greeted us with dignity and politeness. "I told you he's wonderful, isn't he? I'll be happy with him," Sophie exclaimed with joy. Despite my father's awe at John's presence, he managed to ask, "John, what do you do?" "I'm currently undergoing training at a company owned by my father's friend," John replied, prompting Sophie to explain tearfully. "His father is the president of the company. John is training outside the company to succeed him in the future." My sister radiated happiness at the thought of marrying the future president of a company. We engaged in polite conversation with John before he bravely departed. Despite some lingering gaps in our discussion, my parents seemed genuinely pleased with the impressive young man. John, youthful and vibrant, cast an indescribable shadow of darkness upon me. As someone sensitive to such feelings, I couldn't remain silent, fearing this darkness might bring unhappiness to my sister. "Listen, Sophie. You've only been with him for less than 3 months. You should get to know him better before deciding on marriage," I urged, my instincts urging caution. "What are you talking about, sister? He's a distinguished man, a potential president. You're just jealous because you can't compare to my happiness." "You're pitiful," Sophie retorted sharply, echoed by our parents urging me to step aside for such a wealthy future son-in-law. It was clear. My parents' plan was for their daughter to marry into wealth and secure their peace in old age. Anger churned in my mind as I couldn't reveal the looming darkness to my sister. They became engaged, and a meeting between our families followed. My sister's fiancé's parents exuded the same refreshing air as John, yet hidden behind them lurked the same ominous clouds, I noted, but the wedding day arrived before I could voice my concerns to my excited family. "You know, the company president is attending the reception today. Do you grasp how esteemed and promising my future is? It's an honor, But you, my homebound sister, wouldn't understand, Sophie said dismissively before leaving. As always, her words stung with disrespect. They exchanged vows of eternal love in the hotel's wedding hall and entered the reception with my sister beaming. Meanwhile, I watched with concern, wondering how long her happiness would endure. As usual, she managed to throw in a few disrespectful remarks. I thought to myself as they exchanged vows of eternal love in the hotel's wedding hall and proceeded to the reception. My sister beamed with happiness, her smile radiant, while I watched with concern, wondering how long this happiness would endure. The company president will be giving a speech as the guest of honor, my sister announced proudly. It was a congratulatory speech that naturally praised her, leaving her delighted. After the speeches concluded, drinks and appetizers were served at each table. The food looked delicious, but I began feeling increasingly uneasy. Initially, I assumed there was a delay, but other tables were already receiving their drinks and hors d'oeuvres one after another. It was odd. I was the only one not being served. The others at my table also noticed and started to feel uncomfortable. At that moment, my sister leaned in close, laughing into my ear. "Free food isn't meant for people like you. This food is too good for you. You should just go home and snack on potato chips. Just leave our wedding gift and go." I was stunned by her audacity, her words ringing loudly in my ear. The groom chuckled and nodded approvingly from his seat. Even my parents initially feigned surprise, but when they chimed in with comments like, "Well, Sophie has a point," I was not just surprised, but seething with anger. "I never imagined you would condone such behavior, Mom and Dad. This is too much. How can you accept such rudeness?" I exclaimed bitterly, receiving only a stern look from my parents in response. "Fine, I'll go home, but mark my words, you'll regret this." The hall erupted into a frenzy of murmurs and gasps as a man's voice pierced through the tension. "What's with that threat? I wonder if it's the howl of a loser," he proclaimed, his words cutting through the air with an edge of disdain. He stood abruptly, commanding attention with his stark declaration. "I'm the groom's brother. My name is David," he announced boldly, his tone laced with a mix of anger and disbelief. "My brother and parents are scum, but the bride is even more so. I can't take it." David's unexpected outburst sent shockwaves through the gathering, leaving everyone stunned and uncertain of what would happen next in the unfolding drama. As David's accusations reverberated through the hall, the atmosphere became charged with tension and disbelief. "Father, your company went bankrupt half a year ago, and you're still falsely claiming to be the president of it," David continued, his voice cutting through the shocked murmurs of the guests. "The fact that you are still pretending to be the president of this company must mean that you are trying to take advantage of your daughter-in-law and her family." His words hung heavily in the air, casting a shadow over the previously joyous occasion. The buzz of conversation intensified as guests exchanged whispers, trying to comprehend the sudden turn of events. "And John, you can't be president anymore either, but you're still faking it and trying to sleaze off your wife, aren't you? Because you are unemployed now." David's accusations targeted John, the groom, directly, further stirring up the already charged atmosphere. Amidst the chaos, the younger sister, Sophie, erupted in fury. "What do you mean you cheated me? What do you mean you're unemployed?" Her voice trembled with anger and confusion, her face flushed red, then paling to a pallid blue as tears welled in her eyes. Meanwhile, my parents, caught off guard and overwhelmed by the unfolding drama, added to the event with their outbursts. The hall echoed with the pathetic screams and cries of my family, drowning out any attempt at reconciliation or explanation. At that moment, I remembered David's earlier confession and apology, understanding now why he had urged me not to hesitate if something went wrong during the reception. The truth had emerged, shattering the facade of happiness and exposing the deception that had threatened to undermine my sister's future. As the president of my sister's company intervened, his voice filled with anger and authority, the atmosphere in the reception hall shifted once more. His words cut through the tension like a knife. "Enough of this. It's not looking good. You have no right to blame the groom. What makes you think you have the right to criticize the groom's brother or his mistreatment of his brother?" The president's stern rebuke silenced the murmurs that had erupted following David's accusations. My sister, visibly startled by the president's unexpected intervention, listened intently as he continued, his gaze unwavering. "I didn't attend your ceremony for your sake. If you weren't Lily's sister, to whom I owe so much, I wouldn't be here." The mention of my name caught my sister off guard, her eyes widening in surprise. The president went on to praise me, citing my unconventional career path and the impact I had made in the business world. "Lily has saved numerous companies from the crisis," the president declared, his tone respectful and admiring. "She is like a goddess among us business owners." He elaborated on my journey from being a fortune teller and life consultant under my mentor's guidance to becoming an advisor for corporate revitalization. Despite lacking formal managerial training, I leveraged my unique abilities to guide companies towards successful turnarounds. "I have used my powers to show the company the way it should go," the president emphasized, underscoring the effectiveness of my unconventional methods. I was right on target, and one after another, the companies that turned to me revitalized their corporate strategy, experiencing amazing recoveries. The hall fell silent, absorbing the president's unexpected praise and the revelation of my contributions. My parents, who had been caught in the turmoil of the moment, looked on with a mix of surprise and pride. My sister, initially taken aback by the sudden turn of events, now seemed to reassess the situation with a newfound perspective. The president's words not only defended me but also highlighted my achievements, contrasting sharply with the earlier chaos and accusations. It was a moment that shifted the narrative, casting a different light on the unfolding drama and prompting reflection among those present. The aftermath of the wedding was a disaster, marked by misunderstandings and revelations that unraveled the facade of my sister's marriage. As the chaos settled, it became clear that my sister had been unaware of many crucial details, including financial matters and the true source of household contributions. She said, "Oh no, I didn't know anything about that. Aren't you a stay-at-home nobody? Thanks to you, I have a good job and now earn more than you do. I put enough money into the house, but my parents don't care about me, and I have contributed so much to our house." My sister's outburst revealed her misconceptions about our family's dynamics and financial contributions. The revelation that the money she believed she had contributed to the household was actually from my earnings further complicated the situation. It highlighted the disconnect between her perceptions and the reality of our family's support dynamics. The parents seemed to have misunderstood. There was no way she could have brought money into the house. The confusion and misunderstandings only deepened, exacerbating the tension among family members. The dissolution of the wedding and the refunding of gifts underscored the abrupt end to what was supposed to be a joyous occasion, now marred by deceit and financial strain. Besides, I had relied on John's income and signed a contract for a condominium in my name. I can't pay the rent by myself if I'm unemployed. The revelation that my sister had signed a lease for a condominium based on John's income, which she could no longer afford alone, added another layer of distress to her predicament. John's callous response to her distress signaled the dissolution of their relationship and the harsh reality of their failed marriage. To the sobbing sister, John said, "You signed the contract on your own, didn't you? I don't know anything about it. Divorce, 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 you crook." John's dismissive and accusatory words further shattered any remnants of their relationship, leaving my sister to face the fallout and the legal implications of their separation. The wedding turned out to be a mess. This was also the result of his malice towards others for no reason at all. He might have claimed that he had a reason to be malicious, but no way would have passed muster. Reflecting on the chaos that ensued, it was clear that John's actions had precipitated the collapse of the wedding and the subsequent turmoil. His motives, whether driven by malice or deception, underscored the gravity of the situation and its impact on everyone involved. Later, the younger sister divorced John and demanded alimony. Ultimately, my younger sister chose to divorce John, seeking redress through alimony to navigate the financial repercussions of their short-lived marriage. The aftermath of the wedding served as a stark reminder of the consequences of rushing into relationships and the importance of clarity and honesty in all aspects of life. The aftermath of the wedding and its fallout was severe for my younger sister. The financial implications and the damage to her reputation created a challenging situation that she struggled to overcome. There was no way that John, who was unemployed, and his parents could afford to pay a large amount of alimony. And although they were barely able to pay for the wedding hall, it was nowhere near enough to cover the cost of the condo they had contracted for. The house that was to become their love nest was canceled without ever being lived in. The financial strain became evident when it was clear that John and his family could not fulfill the financial obligations my sister expected, including alimony and the condominium lease. The dream of a shared home was shattered before it began, leaving my sister burdened with the loan she had taken out. The financial burden of the unpaid loan weighed heavily on my sister, adding to her stress and challenges. Despite the dissolution of the marriage, she was left with the financial aftermath that she had not anticipated. In addition, the outrageous behavior at the wedding spread quickly among the company officials who were present, and the sister lost credibility. The scandalous events at the wedding tarnished my sister's reputation among her colleagues and superiors. The behavior and revelations at the event cast a shadow on her professionalism and credibility, impacting her standing in the company where she had been seen as an elite employee. My sister's career took a hit, and she found herself relegated to a less prestigious role within her company. The work became mundane, and her prospects seemed uncertain. The president of the company gave up on her and sent her to a lower position. She had no place at the company and lost her pride as an elite employee. John and his parents failed in their attempt to become parasites on my younger sister. They too are struggling to make ends meet by working day jobs. Their attempt to benefit from my sister's financial stability backfired. Now they also struggle to support themselves through ordinary jobs, their illusions shattered. Naturally, the older brother David had separated himself from his parents and younger brother, likely due to their actions and behaviors during and after the wedding debacle. He chose a different path, free from their influence. My parents had easily given up on my sister when it hit rock bottom, and they came to me. But I said, I don't want to be pushed around by you guys anymore. I'm going to cut you off. Goodbye. Faced with my parents seeking support after abandoning my sister, I made a decisive choice to break free from their control and dependence. I moved out, rented a new apartment, and started afresh. With that declaration, I left home, signed a lease on a new apartment, and began a new life. I took in my sister, who had fallen on hard times, and began to have trouble making ends meet. My sister's salary had been drastically reduced, and she could not afford to put any money into our parents' house. Naturally, I also stopped the money I had been putting into my parents' house. My business is going well, and I am positively helping many companies and people. And to tell the truth, I started dating David after the wedding incident, and he recently asked me to go out with him. During these changes, my career as a fortune teller and consultant blossomed. I found fulfillment in helping others, and my relationship with David grew stronger. We're now considering marriage, looking forward to a future built on trust and mutual respect. With David, I found a partner who embodies honesty and sincerity, qualities that promise a bright and stable future. Together, We're aiming to create a life filled with happiness and positivity, leaving behind the shadows of the past.